Hey, welcome to Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Think Thursday is all about your beautiful, brilliant human brain. We're talking neuroscience. We're talking behavior change. We are talking about your mindset. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Hey there, it's Molly, and welcome back to another Think Thursday from the Alcohol Minimalist. You know, December has a way of sneaking up on our nervous systems. On paper, things look fine. Nothing catastrophic is happening, and yet you might notice that your patience feels thinner, your emotions feel closer to the surface, or that familiar coping urges feel louder than usual. This isn't you just not being good at the holidays. It's actually a brain thing. Today, I want to talk to you about something called the window of tolerance. It's a concept from neuroscience and psychology that helps explain why stress feels harder during the holidays, why emotional reactions can feel outsized, and why our capacity for regulation, restraint, and perspective sometimes shrinks during this time of the year. We'll look at what's happening in the brain, how cortisol and emotional flooding fit in, and most importantly, small, doable ways to gently expand your capacity without adding more pressure to an already full season. Let's get into it. The window of tolerance is a term introduced by psychiatrist Dr. Dan Siegel, and it describes the range in which your nervous system can handle stress while still functioning well. When you're inside your window, you can think clearly, respond instead of react, tolerate discomfort, and make choices that align with your values or your long-term goals. When you move outside that window, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. On one end, that can look like feeling keyed up, anxious, irritable, restless, emotionally reactive. On the other end, it can look like feeling flat, shut down, numb, exhausted, disconnected. Both are signs that your brain is working hard to protect you. What's important here is that window of tolerance is not fixed. It expands and contracts based on sleep, stress load, emotional demands, novelty, recovery time, and perceived safety. And December tends to compress or push on all of those things, right? We are getting less sleep often. Our stress seems higher. Emotional demands might feel heavier. There are just, it's different. The season is novel. There's less recovery time. We've got function after function after function. And for those reasons, our brains maybe don't feel quite as safe as they normally do. The holidays create a very specific kind of brain strain. First, there's just cumulative stress. Like I said, even joyful events require regulation. Socializing, travel, schedule changes, financial decisions, they all draw from the same mental and emotional reserves. So that's where the cumulative stress comes from. Second, we talked about anticipation last week, and that anticipation stimulates the brain for the future. Anticipating stress activates the same neural circuits as experiencing it. So your nervous system may already be bracing long before anything actually happens. Third, there's sensory and cognitive overload. Noise, lights, conversations, decision-making. Constant stimulation keeps the brain in a heightened state. And fourth, there's memory. The hippocampus links the holidays to emotional experiences from the past. Even subtle cues, a song, a smell, a family dynamic, can activate emotional responses automatically. That's a big one, right? I know for myself, I've talked about it before, but Thanksgiving is a big mix of emotional cues for me, and I have to be careful because of that in terms of managing and watching my brain's response to everything. Finally, of course, recovery takes a hit because I just said it earlier. Sleep gets disrupted, routines loosen, movement might become inconsistent. I don't know about the rest of you, but I can certainly raise my hand on that one. And all of that makes it harder for the nervous system to reset. So, if small things feel big right now, it's really not because you're less capable, it's because your window of tolerance is narrower. Let's talk about cortisol for a moment. Cortisol is the body's main stress hormone. We've talked about that many times here on the podcast. In short bursts, it's helpful. It mobilizes energy and sharpens focus. But when cortisol stays elevated, which research in journals like psychoneuroendocrinology shows, it is common during prolonged stress, it changes how the brain functions. The prefrontal cortex, which helps with impulse control, perspective, it's our goal-oriented, logical, future-focused area of the brain, it actually becomes less effective when we are in a state of heightened and prolonged cortisol. The amygdala, which scans for threat, becomes more reactive, and the hippocampus, which helps put emotions into context, works less efficiently. And this is what creates emotional flooding. When feelings rise faster than your regulatory systems can manage. Tears come unexpectedly. Irritation feels explosive. Urges feel urgent. From an alcohol minimalist perspective, this matters because coping behaviors don't show up randomly. They show up when the nervous system is overwhelmed and looking for relief. Understanding that shifts this conversation from discipline to capacity. And this is so important right now. I have several clients that I work with who talk to me regularly about being overstimulated, overtired, right? Overstressed. And this is really important to understand. When you are feeling that way, it is important to prioritize taking care of yourself and getting a hold of that window of tolerance again. The encouraging part is that you really don't have to overhaul your life to expand your window of tolerance. The nervous system responds to small, consistent signals of safety. And here's a few that work particularly well, especially during the holidays. Predictability. Even tiny routines help. A consistent morning drink, a short walk, a familiar evening ritual. Predictability tells the brain it's safe to relax for a little while. Movement. Gentle movement lowers cortisol. Walking, stretching, or simply changing environments helps reset nervous system state. So, again, doesn't have to be a big workout, but moving your body gently, important. Sensory regulation. Warmth, texture, sound, and light matter. Holding a warm mug, listening to calm music, dimming the lights, wrapping yourself up in a blanket, all send calming signals. I regularly tell people to think about switching, especially their evening routine, to something that includes a warm cup of tea, reading a book, wrapping up in a blanket. This is sensory regulation. Remember, micro recovery counts. You don't need long breaks. You need more frequent ones. 30 seconds of slow breathing or stepping outside counts. So take a small micro recovery. And name what you feel. Research from UCLA shows that labeling emotions reduces amygdala activation, saying, I feel overwhelmed, actually helps regulate that feeling. And, just for good measure, if you aren't familiar with it, in my book, Breaking the Bottle Legacy, there's a whole chapter on emotional regulation, and included in it is the Feelings Wheel by Dr. Gloria Wilcox, and that is a fantastic tool for learning how to name what you feel. Lastly, adjust expectations, and this one is big. When capacity is lower, expectations need to adjust. This is not giving up. This is intelligent self-regulation. That is why we make doable plans, right? We don't set ourselves up for failure. We look for small steps that are moving ourselves in the right direction. And consistency and making small plans still consistently during a season of a lot of deregulation can help, and it's intelligent self-regulation. One of the hardest parts of December is expecting ourselves to operate as if nothing has changed. But behavior change requires bandwidth. Choice requires regulation. Self-trust requires capacity. When the window of tolerance narrows, the goal shifts from optimization to stability. That might look like fewer social commitments, simpler meals, planning comforting non-alcoholic options, prioritizing rest, or letting good enough be enough. This aligns with so many Think Thursday conversations that we've had about novelty, about anticipation last week, about selective ignorance, defensive pessimism. The brain does best when demands match capacity. And December asks a lot of us. So here's what I hope you take away from today's episode. If the holidays feel harder this year, it's not a character issue. It's a nervous system issue. Understanding your stress tolerance window gives you permission to slow down, to simplify, and to support your brain in realistic ways. You don't expand capacity by pushing harder. I want you to hear me say that again. You do not expand capacity or the window of tolerance by pushing yourself harder. You expand it by creating safety, predictability, and compassion. That's how regulation returns. That's how urges soften. That's how this season becomes more manageable. That's all I have for you today, my friends. Until next time, choose peace, and I will see you on Monday.